but this time analyzing your investment in stock inventory. Now, we firmly believe that people will do what you inspect, not what you expect. And you may have heard that expression before, but it's very, very, very true. A lot of people don't know how to achieve what we've been talking about in these webinars, called the goal of effective inventory management. Got ahead of myself there for a second. That is, we believe you're trying to achieve this goal. That is to meet or exceed your customers' expectations, but do that with the amount of each item that will maximize your net profits or minimize your costs. Now, everybody wants to achieve this goal. Everybody wants to get the most out of their inventory investment. Everyone wants their inventory to work as hard as possible for them. But how do we know if we're making progress? Well, that's where benchmarks come in. That's where some metrics come in. A benchmark is a comparison of your company's performance to a standard in order to determine if you are meeting your goals, if you're making progress to achieving what you want to do with your inventory. Now, I firmly believe you should be more interested in comparing your performance not to industry standards, but to your prior performance. This is what we call continual improvement. If I go into my emails, which I'll do after this session, I will get at least 2 or 3 inquiries from distributors and manufacturers, often asking, what is the average inventory turnover for someone in my industry? What's the average turnover? And I always want to respond, do you really want to be average? Do you want, is your goal to be no worse than anyone else? I want you to be above average. I want you to achieve your goals, to be the best you can be. I want you to look for continual improvement. Now, a lot of people will experience what we call paper pollution or paper overload. They get so many reports, look at so many things, they don't know what is important. Okay, I had this situation with a distributor yesterday. I'm in Connecticut, by the way, where it's about 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I wish I was with you in Southern California. We took these many metrics that my customer was using yesterday, and we just reduced them to 5. They're looking at 5 metrics now, 5 measurements every month that will tell them if they are doing a good job, if they're making progress managing their inventory to achieve their goals. These metrics include the adjusted gross margin, the customer service level, inventory turnover, the turn-earn index, or gross margin return on investment. That's also known as GMROI. And finally, the percentage of excess inventory. We're going to discuss all 5 of those in the next hour or so. In addition, we're going to help you calculate your ideal inventory investment and what your potential turnover is. Not what the average is in your industry, but what your potential is, what your goal should be. So we have a lot to do, so let's get started. Okay? Now, the first metric that we're going to look at, the first measurement, I'm going to call adjusted margin. This is different than gross margin. Many of you, perhaps all of you, are familiar with gross margin. It probably is one of the best inventory metrics, most important that you deal with today. Very simple metric. It divides profit dollars, that is, sales dollars minus cost dollars. It divides that by your sales dollars. Profit dollars divided by sales dollars. I don't like gross margin. I find it to be very, very, very misleading. Why? Because it doesn't include inventory. look at this item. I had sales last year of $10,000, cost of goods sold of $6,000. That means I was earning a $4,000 gross profit on that $10,000 in sales. $4,000 divided by 10,000, that's a 40% gross margin. A lot of you would be very happy with a 40% gross margin, but look down at the bottom. This particular company has $12,000 in inventory in this particular product. Now, some of you who are familiar with inventory metrics are saying, okay, they had $6,000 cost of goods sold, that COGS up near the top. We divide that $6,000 by that $12,000 in inventory. That's 1/2 of 1 turn per year. 1/2 of 1 turn per year. That's not very good. But they would have exactly the same gross margin if they had $1,000 in inventory. They would have the same gross margin if they had $1 billion in inventory. Why? Because you do not see inventory in that gross margin calculation. Many times I find people trying to maximize their gross margin. How do they do that? Well, salespeople will beat up their buyers to get the lowest possible unit cost for every item they stock. Okay? Get the lowest possible cost. How are they going to do that? Simple. They buy a lot of the product. The more you buy, the lower the unit cost, the lower the cost per piece. You can buy so much to minimize that unit cost that you're going to choke on your inventory. Your warehouse walls are not elastic. You only want to buy what you're going to sell in the near future. I want you to replace that gross margin equation with a different metric, a better measurement of profitability that we call adjusted margin. Similar to gross margin in that we are going to divide your profit dollars by sales dollars. But from the profit dollars, we are going to subtract your cost of carrying the average inventory investment. What does it cost you to carry the average inventory investment in an item? Well, what's included in that average inventory investment? Well, all the costs that you incur warehousing the item, moving the material around, putting away stock receipts, insuring your inventory, any other charges that you have on inventory, maybe some taxes, rent and utilities for the portion of your facility used to store material. The more material you have, the bigger the bill that you have to have, The more material you have, the bigger the facility you need. Physical inventory, cycle counting. If you don't buy it, you don't have to count it. Okay? Shrinkage, obsolescence. This is often a major factor. But if you don't buy it, I can't steal it from you. It cannot become obsolete. Finally, the opportunity cost of the money invested in inventory. Okay? If you're borrowing money to invest in inventory, this is your interest expense. If you are using corporate funds, if you're funding your own purchases, that is what that money could earn in a relatively safe investment. I encourage all of you, if you haven't done so already, go to our website, www.effectiveinventory.com. Go to the website. On the front page, there is a button called Carrying Cost. It will give you a questionnaire called The Mysterious Cost of Carrying Inventory. Fill out that questionnaire. Send it to us. We will, at no cost, at no obligation, calculate your cost of carrying inventory, compare it to others in your industry in Southern California, and tell you if any of these expenses are high, if any are low, or which ones are actually just right, just typical for a firm. Okay? So we want you to have that cost of carrying inventory. Then you can calculate your adjusted margin using the formula that you saw on a previous slide. Now I want you to look at these 3 examples, 3 different inventory investments for an item where you had $1,000 in sales last year. You earn $150 gross profit. That's a 15% margin. Okay? Now, if their carrying cost was 20% per year, meaning it cost them 20 cents to maintain a dollar's worth of inventory every year, okay? Look at how the adjusted margin drops from 10 to 5 to 0 as the average inventory increases. Now, in Southern California today, your cost of carrying inventory should be somewhere between 16 and 23% on an annual basis. Translated, that means it should cost you somewhere between 16 and 23 cents to maintain a dollar's worth of inventory in your warehouse for an entire year. Replace gross margin with adjusted margin. You will get a much better measurement as to productivity. Now, adjusted margin is important. It's very important. But the most important measurement in all of metrics for distributors is the customer service level. Remember, when we looked at the goal of effective inventory management, we said your primary goal is to meet or exceed customers' expectations of product availability. Well, we want to see how often you achieve that. How often do you have the entire quantity that a customer wants of a product? You can deliver it to them in one shipment complete by the date they want the product. We always measure customer service at all of our customers because it is so important. We divide the number of line items for stock products shipped complete by the promise date divided by the total number of line items for stock products ordered. Let's review that again. The number of line items for stock products shipped complete by the promise date in one shipment divided by the total number of line items for stock products ordered. Now, a couple of notes on this. Keys to measuring this accurately and well. We only look at stock line items, okay? Non-stock products aren't included. Direct ship items, products that go directly from your vendor to your customer, not included. We only look at line items shipped complete by the promise date. I am not interested in the percentage of pieces that I ship. We'll look at that more in just 1 second. Okay. Initial shipments only. I don't include back orders. If I can't deliver the entire quantity in one shipment, I don't get credit. Okay. This requires that you accurately record the promise date when the customer wanted the product, not necessarily when you could deliver it. Okay. And let's go on. Let's look at an example. That first item, the B230, you notice that the customer ordered 10. We were able to ship 10. We get credit towards the customer service level. The second item, the D348, we could only ship 95 out of the 100 pieces that the customer ordered. Now, there's another measurement, as you can see, towards the bottom, which says that would be a 95% fill rate. We gave the customer 95% of what he or she wanted. I consider that a failure. If the customer wanted 100 and ordered 100, they expect us to deliver 100 pieces. If they wanted 95, they would have ordered 95. You might say, well, maybe the customer didn't need all 100 pieces at one time. If I deliver 95 today and 5 more tomorrow, it really isn't harming the customer. Well, it is in a way, and you have to look at it this way. If you deliver the 100 pieces in 2 shipments, the initial shipment and then that back order for 5 pieces, you've caused the customer to process 2 stock receipts. His or her cost of doing business goes up. You, in fact, had 2 orders to ship out, the initial shipment and then that back order shipment. Wow, your cost of filling that request by the customer was twice what it should have been. Okay? your costs are higher, you're losing profitability. Any way you look at it, it is a failure. We want to be sure your service level meets your customer service goals. Okay? Typically, most distributors aim for about a 95% service level. 95% of the time, they have what their customer wants on the shelf, and they can deliver or ship it in one shipment by the promise date. This is very, very, very important. Now, if your computer system doesn't measure customer service, okay, some don't, I'd like you to measure customer service manually. Take 100 orders at random each month. Now, ignore non-stock items, direct shipments, back order shipments, just put those aside. Calculate your customer service on the remaining line items. Are you at 95% or above? Great computer systems like those distributed and implemented by our host will allow you to deliver a high level of customer service to your customer. As a matter of fact, they can show you how much inventory you need to deliver any level of customer service you want. Unfortunately, the higher level of customer service you want to deliver, the more inventory you're going to need. But we can calculate the amount of inventory that you should have on hand to meet any level of customer service. Now, customer service is so important that some of our customers actually go beyond a simple customer service measure. They do several things. One of those is that they will take the customer service level and then, for those failures, when they didn't have the entire quantity that a customer wanted on hand for immediate delivery, how long did it take them to fill the back order? You can see on the screen that you're looking at now, Cooper, okay, had 200 orders. We could deliver 184 of those 200 orders complete in the Cooper line. That's a 92% service level. But 14 of the 16 orders we couldn't fill complete. It took more than a week for us to get that back order quantity to the customer. This is very, very interesting, very, very telling, because we want to be sure that we minimize the amount of time it takes us to fill back orders. But our customers go beyond that as well. We've had several requests and several customers implement what we call a customer satisfaction index. Now, the customer service level just determines if you have the quantities of products that customers want. Okay? Customer satisfaction does exactly what it says. It asks, or it tells you, I should say, it tells you how often, what percentage of the time a customer is totally satisfied with what they receive from your company. Every time a customer is not satisfied, every time they call someone in customer service or they talk to someone in accounts receivable, okay, we fill out a card or an entry on a screen detailing what went wrong. Why was the customer not satisfied? Did they receive the wrong item? Was the wrong quantity shipped? Was the material delivered to the wrong address? Was the paperwork incorrect? Were they charged the wrong price? What happened? What did we do wrong? And what are we going to do to fix the problem and prevent the problem from reoccurring in the future? Now, I said that most people try to aim for a 95% service level. Well, most people try to aim for a customer satisfaction index rate of no more than one incident, one of these cards being filled out, one complaint for every 250 orders shipped. Okay? Now, if you have trouble measuring and monitoring customer delivery dates, if you have a retail area and Your customers won't buy a product if it isn't sitting on the shelf, and you don't know that you could have sold it because you're not following your customers around. You can have an equivalent measurement to the service level by analyzing stockouts. We analyze stockouts two different ways: the number of times a product was out of stock and the total number of days a product was out of stock. Why do we do this? Well, if you are constantly running out of a product, let's say you're out of a fast-moving item, what we consider to be an A item, more than twice in 3 months, chances are your replenishment quantity is inadequate. Your replenishment quantity is inadequate. You don't have enough of the product on the shelf. You need to buy more of the product. But if you're out of the product for a long number of days, maybe out of the product for 7 or more days, chances are you have a vendor problem, a vendor lead time problem that you have to address. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to your faster moving products, what we call your A items. Those products that your customers request most often. How often are you out of those products? In fact, at many of our clients, we actually have an investigation if they run out of an A item. So, we've covered service level. We've covered adjusted margin. The next metric is probably the most misunderstood. It's called inventory turnover. The number of times you sell or turn over your investment in a product every year. That is on an annual basis. Okay? I don't like the expression inventory turnover because it has some negative implications. It has some definite negative implications. I prefer the expression opportunity to earn a profit. You see that in the paragraph in gold print, sort of in the middle of the screen. And I want you to pay attention to that. Inventory turnover really measures the number of opportunities you have to earn a profit for every dollar you have invested in inventory. Why do I like this expression? Because everyone in your organization should be interested in earning profits, from salespeople to purchasing people to upper-level management. Everybody should be interested in earning profits. When I meet with salespeople, I always show them this screen to explain the importance of inventory turnover. We take a sample item. This particular item, I had $12,500 in sales last year. Annual cost of goods sold, $10,000, which means I was earning $2,500 profit. Okay? I could have bought $10,000 worth of this item in January, sold it through the year. At the end of the year, I've still sold $10,000 worth, so I sold everything I purchased, earned $2,500. But at one time, I had a maximum of $10,000 invested in my warehouse. I could buy $5,000 in January, sell that, and about halfway through the year, buy another $5,000 worth. At the end of the year, I've still sold $10,000, but at any one time, I only had a maximum of $5,000 invested in inventory to earn that $2,500 annual gross profit. I can get even more aggressive. I can earn $2,500, sell that by another $2,500, sell that by another $2,500, sell that at the end of the year. I've still sold $10,000 worth of the product for $12,500, made my $2,500 profit, but at any one time I had a maximum of $2,500 invested in inventory of this product in my warehouse. Now, I often ask people, would you rather earn $2,500 on a $2,500 investment or a $10,000 investment? What do you think they say? They say the $2,500 investment. I further say, what could we do with the $7,500 I've just freed up? Well, they often say, we could invest in more inventory. This is the importance of turnover. dollar work harder. That's the goal. Okay, now the basic turnover equation. Let's look at that for a second. We're going to divide the cost of goods sold from stock sales in the past 12 months by your average inventory value. Divide your cost of goods sold from stock sales in the past 12 months by your average inventory value. But how we calculate that numerator and denominator of this equation is very, very, very important. Let's look at that. Okay. In the denominator, the cost of goods sold, we use a rolling 12 months, not a year-to-date figure. A rolling 12 months means that at the end of November 2009, I will look at my figures, my cost of goods sold, from December 2008 through November 2009. Now, these are cost of goods sold dollars, not sales dollars, not projected future usage times cost. Okay? We only consider items that you have committed to have in inventory, items that are on what we call your approved stock list. We don't include special order items, direct shipments. Why? Because they're not part of that average inventory value. These items, if they come into your warehouse at all, flow in and flow right back out. So in the numerator, we are looking at a cost of goods sold that conforms to these three rules. In the denominator, we look at the average inventory value over the previous 12 months. Basically, in most cases, this is the average of the last 12 month-end inventory values. Add them up, divide by 12. If your inventory fluctuates through the month and you have low or high inventory at the end of each month, just take values on the 15th and 30th of each month and add up all the values over the previous 12 months, all 24 values at the beginning and middle of the month of the past year. Now, when you look at your cost of goods sold, pay particular attention to your A items, to those items with a high cost of goods sold, a lot of dollars moving through your inventory. To improve your overall profitability, you want to push the turnover of these A items. I'm showing you an example from one of our clients. Okay, they had a total of 15,000 items stocked in their warehouse. Okay, A items. Okay, 2,000 A items account for 80% of the total cost of goods sold. You may have heard the expression, 80% of your sales come from 20% of your items. Here we have that 80% of your sales. Now notice that they had 1,500 items that had no sales in the past 12 months. That's 10% of their inventory items. Well, they wanted to improve inventory performance, and they first thought that they were going to get rid of the items that weren't selling, their dead inventory. They had $163,000, actually $163,121 invested in inventory that wasn't selling. I said, don't worry about that right now. Getting rid of dead inventory is difficult in many cases, and it really wouldn't be as productive as concentrating on improving the inventory of those A items. In a period of 60 days, I want you to look at this, 60 days, we reduced the inventory of A items from $1.6 million down to $1.3 million. That is a substantial reduction. The turnover of that inventory went from 4.8 to 6.0 turns. The overall turnover went from 3.7 turns to 4.2 turns. 3.7 to 4.2 turns on an annual basis. This was a dramatic and very good increase in inventory turnover, which related to a dramatic increase in this firm's profitability. Okay? Now, had they just gotten rid of their dead stock, that 163,000. First of all, I would argue that in all probability they weren't better off. They just acknowledged that dead stock was worth nothing. But inventory turnover would not have increased that much. It would have only gone from 3.7 to 3.9 turns. You are always better off if you want to increase your inventory by working on your A items, improving the inventory performance of those A items. Okay? Now, many people want to compare their results to other firms. Okay, everybody has an ideal inventory investment. Everybody has a potential turnover. We're going to look at that in a moment. But if you want to compare your performance to other companies, okay, I have two measurements for you to look at. One is called a return on investment. The other is called a gross margin return on investment. The return on investment, also known as a turn-earn index, multiplies turnover by your gross margin percentage. This one actually uses gross margin percentage. It is not an adjusted margin. Why? Because a lot of people don't calculate your adjusted margin. They only calculate a gross margin. Okay? We multiply turnover by your gross margin, the theory being that high margins can compensate for low turnover. The other measurement that you might choose is called gross margin return on investment. We take your annual profit dollars divided by your average inventory investment. Annual gross profit dollars divided by your average inventory investment. Now, it's important to realize the difference between the turn-earn index and the GMROI. The turn-earn index, also known as return on investment, and your gross margin return on investment. The reason why you want to be aware of the difference is that, given the same numbers, your GMROI will always be higher than your turn-earn index. It's always going to be higher. Here we have an example. We have an item with sales of $2,000, cost of goods sold of $1,500, and an average inventory of $250. Using those numbers, we get a turn-earn index of 150 and a GMROI of 200. If you want to be in the upper quartile of distributors, you need a turn-earn index. Well, let's start with the upper 50%. If you want to be in the upper 50%, you need a turn-earn index above 120. The upper quartile, a turn-earn index of 180. Okay? Turn-earn index of 180, that could be 9 turns at a 20% margin. Also, the turn-earn index of 180 could be 10 turns at an 18% margin. Anything that equals 180, two numbers multiplied together, gives us that turn-earn index in the upper quartile. The GMROI to be in the upper 50%. To be above average, you need a GMROI of 150. To be in the upper quartile, you need a GMROI, a gross margin return on investment, of 220. Now, one isn't better than the other. They are just measuring exactly the same thing, your overall inventory profitability, but on two different scales, sort of like centigrade and Fahrenheit temperature. Now, I promised you that we would help you calculate your average inventory investment. Okay? And we have a few minutes. We're going to do this. Now, to understand how to calculate your average inventory investment, I have to introduce 3 stocking concepts to you. We call them safety stock, your order point, and your line point. Okay? Safety stock is reserve inventory. This is the inventory that you have on hand just in case of emergency. You sell more than you thought you would, you'll dig into your safety stock or reserve inventory quantity. We have order point. That's your safety stock plus what you're planning on selling during the lead time. Your demand per day times your anticipated lead time. Okay. If you sell 2 pieces a day, and you have a 7-day lead time. 2 times 7 is 14 pieces. You want to reorder the product when you have 14 pieces plus that safety stock quantity on the shelf to ensure that you receive your replenishment shipment in before you run out of stock. Now, if you could order any product at any time from a vendor, you would only need that order point. But in many cases, you just can't order one item at a time. You need to place what we call a target order with the vendor. This may be a monetary amount, like $10,000. This may be a truckload. This may be a container load. This is the vendor's requirements for you to get the terms or conditions that allow you to sell that vendor's products competitively. Okay? Now, that line point is the order point plus the demand during the time it takes you to build that target order, to sell enough, to fill that container, to fill that truckload, to earn $10,000 or to generate $10,000 worth of purchases. Now, you will be replenishing your inventory when your stock level, when your net available quantity is somewhere between that order point and line point. If you only have one minimum quantity in your computer system, it's going to be set, or it should be set, to that line point. Your safety stock plus anticipated lead time demand plus anticipated what we call order or review cycle demand. So you're going to order it. Order this material somewhere between your order point and line point. Now you will be receiving that shipment in somewhere between that line point minus your lead time usage and your order point minus lead time usage. But remember, we also call that order point minus lead time usage the safety stock. Okay? So, on average, you will be receiving a replenishment shipment in. Replenishment shipment will hit your dock when you're halfway between that line point minus lead time usage and that safety stock quantity. That's the first component of your average inventory investment in an item. The second component involves how much you buy. No matter how much you buy, during the time it takes you to sell that quantity, on average you will have half the purchase quantity. If you buy 1,000 pieces of whatever item, during the time it takes you to sell the 1,000 pieces of that item, half the time you'll have more than 500 pieces, and half the time you will have less than 500 pieces. You're going to be right in the middle. So your average inventory investment in any product will be halfway between the line point minus lead time usage and the safety stock, that average amount of inventory plus half of what you buy. You calculate that for every item using the figure that you see on your screen, using the equation that you see on your screen right there. You multiply that quantity by your average or replacement cost per piece. You're going to know what your average inventory investment will be. You add this up for all the items that you stock. You will have your ideal inventory investment. If you sum up all of the items, all of the warehouses, you're going to be in great shape. The only thing that I do differently, if you have items that don't sell that often that have sporadic usage, I will plan on having your maximum quantity on hand at all times. This allows us to really get a good number that we can achieve for your average or ideal average, I should say, inventory investment. Now, what is your potential turnover? What should you be aiming for as far as turnover is concerned? Well, you can divide your annual cost of goods sold by that ideal inventory investment. You'll have your potential turnover at the end of each month. I want you to measure where you are against that potential. This is really going to give you some great information. Okay, we don't have much time left, and I just want to cover one more metric, which is equally important to adjusted margin, to the service level, to turnover, to the GMROI, the gross margin return on investment, or turn-earn index. Boy, we've covered a lot today. The last metric is going to be your percentage of excess inventory. How much inventory do you have in excess of a certain number of months' usage? For most of you, we typically will look at how much inventory do you have in excess of a 1-year supply, a 12-month supply. Usually no more than 5 to 10% of your inventory investment should be in excess of that 1-year supply. You get nervous when your excess inventory value, which by the way includes all of your dead stock, goes above 10% of your total inventory investment. We get so nervous that we want to be liquidating that inventory. Inventory liquidation, very important. We want to reduce your excess inventory. The value of excess inventory should be decreasing every month until it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of your total inventory investment. As you liquidate inventory, the best piece of advice I can give you is do not get emotional about your stock. It clouds your judgment. You see that quote from the movie Wall Street in that third bullet point. It's very important. Michael Douglas, Gordon Gekko's, who played a character by the name of Gordon Gekko, said, don't get emotional about your stock. It clouds your judgment. He was talking about stock, as in the stock market. It is more important to all of you who have stock inventory. Don't get emotional about it. Remember that inventory is a sunk expense. It is not worth what you paid for it. It is worth what someone is willing to pay you for it. I want you to list out a report in descending order based on value of excess inventory, all material that you want to liquidate. As you liquidate this material, remember that any money you get above the cost of disposal is found money. You can transfer your excess stock to another location where that inventory is needed. Maybe another branch needs it. Transfer before you buy. If customers have discretion over what they purchase, reducing the price, offering salespeople an incentive or what we call a spiff, sometimes we'll move that material, put it on a clearance rack, advertise the availability of this material to other suppliers. The internet provides a lot of sources to dispose of material. If you'd like some examples of websites for the products that you want to dispose of, send me an email. I'll show you my email address in a second, and we will give you the name of sites that specialize in whatever products you need to dispose of. Substitute the item for a less expensive product. Return material to the vendor. Whatever you can do above the cost of disposal is found money. Finally, if you can do nothing else, donate it to a nonprofit organization. Again, we can direct you to organizations that can use your inventory. If you're a Subchapter C corporation, you can donate material and deduct up to twice the cost of that material. If you're a Subchapter S corporation, a partnership, any other business entity, donating material will give you a warm and fuzzy feeling, the same way if you throw it out. But if you donate it, or even if you throw it out, you're freeing up space in your warehouse, space that you can use for more productive inventory or more productive uses. Okay, in the past hour, we've covered a lot of information. We've discussed the adjusted margin, customer service level, inventory turnover. We discussed the turn-earn index and gross margin return on investment. percentage of excess inventory. We even looked at how to calculate your average inventory investment. Very good things, but I want you to implement them. I want you to measure these 5 metrics: the adjusted margin, the service level, the turnover, the Turner Index, or gross margin return on investment. It's your choice. And percentage of excess inventory every month. We want to see gradual improvement. We want you also to calculate your ideal inventory investment so that you can compare how much you have in inventory now to what you should have. Doing all of these things will allow you to achieve the goal of effective inventory management.